Yes or no, did you lead an audit? Yes or no? What are you afraid of? You can't answer this question?
Commanders do not have to have a quota for women in the infantry. That does not exist.
Those were false charges. Well, it was fully investigated, and I was completely cleared.
They made him look good today. It's difficult for a Republican to vote against Hegseth.
In this video today, Pete Hegseth dominates his confirmation hearing. Elizabeth Warren makes a fool of herself, and the Democrats are left scrambling. So where we're going to start first is Congresswoman Tammy Duckworth, who accused Tulsi Gabbard of being a Russian asset, presses Pete Hegseth on the idea that he has no experience in making sure that the DOD will be able to pass audits, which they haven't been able to do in the last 7, as we know. But let's go ahead and take a look.
Please describe to me a time or an organization when that you led underwent an audit, because you say you're going to hire smarter people than you to run this audit. I'm not asking you to be an accountant. I want you to be able to tell me what kind of guidance will be given to those employees, what will happen if, whether or not you pass that audit. Have you led an audit of any organization? Yes or no? I don't want a long answer. Yes or no? Have you led an audit of any organization of which you were in charge?
Senator, in both of the organizations I ran, we were always completely fiscally responsible.
Yes or no, did you lead an audit?
And the way
yes or no, did you lead an audit? Yes or no? What are you afraid of? You can't answer this question. Yes or no, did you lead an audit? Do you not know this answer?
Senator, every part of my leadership of these organizations has been misrepresented.
I will take that as a no. What were the findings? So there were no findings because you've never led an audit. What guidance did you give the auditors? None, because you've never led an audit. Nobody expects you to be an accountant, Mr. Hegseth. What we expect is for you to understand the complexity of this Pentagon budget process that is absolutely necessary to outfit our warfighter.
Now, I find it very interesting that they're so pressed about the audit for the Department of Defense, but they haven't held anybody accountable for the 7 failed audits. Where was Secretary Lloyd Austin's hearing condemning his inability to pass an audit? There's no record of that. And in fact, the only record we have of him even having to answer to the committee is when he went AWOL for 1 week. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. So clearly what you guys are going to see throughout this video is really 2 main issues, because this is really a smaller one. What is Pete Hegseth's stance about women in the military, specifically combat roles? And then what about his infidelity in some of his prior marriages? That's where they really want to focus on. And I'll tell you just straight up, that's where they both failed in. That's where the Democrats failed in, and it actually blew back in their face because he was just too confident, calm, and collective. And a great example of that is his exchange with Elizabeth Warren, Miss Pocahontas. Watch this.
Now, Mr. Hegseth, you have written that after they retire, generals should be banned from working for the defense industry for 10 years. You and I agree on the corrosive effects of the revolving door between the Pentagon and defense contractors. It's something I would have liked to talk to you about if you'd come and been willing to visit with me. But the question I have for you on this is, will you put your money where your mouth is and agree that when you leave this job, you will not work for the defense industry for 10 years?
Senator, it's not even a question I've thought about, because it's not one
think about it right now.
It's not one. My motivation for this job
I understand
has never
that.
been
I just
about
need
what
a
could
yes or no
conceivably
here.
come next.
Time is short. I just need a yes or no.
I would consult with the president about what the policy should be
In
at the Defense
other
Department.
words, you're quite sure that every general who serves should not go directly into the defense industry for 10 years. But you're not willing to make that same pledge?
I'm not a general, Senator.
You'll be the one, let us just be clear, in charge of the generals. So you're saying sauce for the goose, but certainly not sauce for the gander?
I would want to see what the policy of the president
I'll
is.
bet you would.
Thank you, Senator Warren.
Now, the main issue that she is trying to press Pete Hegseth on is this common habit of generals that have served in the military reach the appointment of Secretary of Defense and then obviously left that appointment and worked at these defense contractors, or vice versa. For example, Secretary Lloyd Austin right now used to work at Raytheon. In fact, he was on the board of directors, and then he left that to serve as Secretary of Defense. So is there some level of conflict of interest? Definitely that's a worthy conversation to have. There's no doubt about that. And Pete Hegseth's position technically has been that he doesn't like it. Now, Congresswoman Luna brought this point up. She said, Senator Warren, the real question here is what changed between 1986 and today when you lied about being an American Indian? And as you guys can see Here's the actual receipt showing the words American Indian that Elizabeth Warren wrote. Now, I'm not going to show all this other information because it's irrelevant, but the point being is what? She tried to get Pete Hegseth on the idea that he flip-flopped when it came to women serving in the military. His concern, just like many other veterans, including myself, if you've ever served in the infantry, you do not want women serving in combat roles. Why is that? Because then the standards have to be lowered because physically they're not the same. Okay, in order for a woman to pick up a 50 cal, okay, and march with it or hike with it for a certain distance, there's no way she'll outlast a man. That just isn't possible. It's not the way the bodies are built. But what they do is they take that statement out of context and they turn it into, well, Pete Hegseth doesn't want any women in the military. No, that's not true whatsoever. Now, speaking about women in the military, here is another congresswoman who went berserk on him about it. Watch this.
Well, Senator, I appreciate your comments. And I would point out, I have never disparaged women serving in the military. I respect every single female service member that has put on the uniform, past and present. My critiques, Senator, recently and in the past, and from personal experience, have been instances where I've seen standards lowered, and you mentioned 11 Alpha, 11 Bravo, MOS, places in units, and the book that has been referenced multiple times here, The War on Warriors. I spent months talking to active duty service members, men and women, low ranks, high ranks, combat arms and not combat arms. And what each and every one of them told me, and which personal instances have shown me, is that in ways direct, indirect, overt, and subtle, standards have been changed inside infantry training units, ranger school, infantry battalions, to ensure that
Give me one example. Please give me an example. I get you're making these generalized
meet
statements.
quotas to have a certain number of female infantry officers or infantry enlisted, and that disparages those women
Commanders
who are
do
incredibly
not have to
capable
meet
of meeting
quotas
that
for the
standard.
infantry. Commanders do not have to have a quota for women in the infantry. That does not exist. It does not exist.
Now, before I actually fact check some of the other stupid claims that she made, let me just say this. There's absolute quotas. There's no question about it. There's a quota for how many people they need to serve in the military. Okay. There's a quota for how many officers are needed. How do you know there is a quota? Because every single unit in the military has to be manned by a certain number of individuals. So there is a quota. And the question is, are we meeting it? And you can't meet it if people don't want to join the military. And they don't want to join the military because the standards have been lowered over time. And it's become more woke, more political. That's the main reason why I'm not in the military anymore. I saw it on the wall. I saw the writing on the wall. I saw it coming. There are certain conversations I had with leaders that were more political and more about moving me through the ranks because of my skin color and not because of my merit. When I started having those conversations, I knew this isn't for me anymore because that's just not in my values. So I'm not going to be the leader you need me to be if I'm only in this position because of my skin color. It just isn't going to happen. So, of course, this account here called Bow-Tied Ranger, which is an individual I follow here, and he talks about his experience as a ranger and in special forces. He wrote this: no one really talks about how much of a disaster it was to send the first females through ranger school. None of them could pass patrols. They all struggled with peer evaluations. Many of them failed peer reviews in at least one phase, and all of them recycled multiple times before generals start flying in to observe. Now, let me explain something to you. Anybody that goes to ranger school and has passed it will tell you, and I'm just going to make this very simple. If 100 people started day one in ranger school, the ratio is like 3, max 5 will be there in the end. I mean, that's how many people drop out. It's that physically demanding, mentally demanding, spiritually demanding, emotional. It really pushes you to the limits. And so to think that women could actually go in there and meet the same standards as men, that is you living on another planet. Just is not physically possible. But it took these politicians to come in and start modifying these standards in order to accommodate women in ranger school, which is what he goes on to say here. The standards had to be bent so far to fit the diversity goals they broke. This whole project has been a fake from the start, as fake as pretending men can be women. Now, as another example or another exhibit to prove my point here, you're looking at the Army Physical Fitness scoring scale for the 2-mile run. You got to run 2 miles in a certain amount of time. Well, as you guys can tell, there's a male column and a female column. Well, why is that? Because the standards are different because of biology. Now, if you want to get 100 points and you're my age, which is 36, you got to run 15 minutes and 18 seconds as a female to get 100. But if you were a male, you needed to run 13 minutes and 42 seconds. There's almost a 2-minute difference there. Now, why would we do that? Why? Because clearly there's a difference in the biology. I don't even know why I even have to explain this to people, but this is what happens when woke politicians get into the military trying to change things because they're trying to serve this whole social justice movement. I served 13 years in the Army. I never met one female who wanted to be in the infantry. Not one.
So just, you cannot denigrate women in general, and your statements do that. We don't want women in the military, especially in combat. What a terrible statement. So please, do not deny that you've made those statements. You have. We take the responsibility of standards very seriously, and we will work with you. I'm equally distressed you would not meet with me before this hearing. We could have covered all of this before you came here, so I could get to the 15 other questions that I want to get to. So women, you have denigrated. You have also denigrated members of the LGBTQ community. Did you know that when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was in place, we lost so many crucial personnel, over 1,000 in mission-critical areas. We lost 10% of all our foreign language speakers because of a political policy. You said in your statement, you don't want politics in the DOD. Everything you've said in these public statements is politics. I don't want women. I don't want moms. What's wrong with a mom, by the way? Once you have babies, you therefore are no longer able to be lethal. I mean, you're basically saying women, after they have children, can't ever serve in the military in a combat role. It's a silly thing to say.
No, the silly thing here is how we made young people believe that being patriotic about your country makes you some right-wing extremist. Okay, that's the first thing. Secondly, he didn't need to meet with any Democrats because he doesn't need any of your votes. There's a Republican majority in the Senate. So to throw that in his face is a waste of time. And thirdly, once again, they try to take his comments out of context. Okay. I am of the same belief that he has. I don't believe women should be serving in combat roles either, but they should be in the military. There's no question about that. And they could be moms. They could be whatever they want. That's fine. Now, let me take you to this next clip. We're at the point where they want to get into Pete Hegseth's infidelity. They want to bring all that up because they think due to his infidelity, that means he is not qualified to be Secretary of Defense, which we all know majority of people even questioning him today is probably cheated on their significant other, which another congressman had to point out, and I'll show you that clip as well. But let's go to Tim Kaine, Hillary Clinton's vice presidential running mate, and his nonsense. Watch.
At that time, you were still married to your second wife, correct?
I believe so.
And you had just fathered a child by a woman who would later become your third wife, correct?
Senator, I was falsely charged, fully investigated, and completely cleared.
So you think you were completely cleared because you committed no crime? That's your definition of cleared? You had just fathered a child 2 months before by a woman that was not your wife. I am shocked that you would stand here and say you're completely cleared. Can you so casually cheat on a second wife and cheat on the mother of a child that had been born 2 months before, and you tell us you are completely cleared? How is that a complete clear?
Senator, her child's name is Gwendolyn Hope Hegseth, and she's a child of God, and she's 7 years old.
And she was, and
here.
you cheated on the mother of that child less than 2 months after that daughter was born, didn't you?
Those were false charges.
Well,
It
no,
was fully investigated, and I was completely cleared. And I am so grateful for the marriage I have to this amazing woman.
Now, if we want to play the same game that Tim Kaine is playing here, let's do that because Colin Rugg on X put this up. During Pete Hegseth's Senate confirmation hearing today, Senator Tim Kaine shared his moral outrage over Hegseth's previous relationships. He suggested he wouldn't vote for Hegseth's confirmation because of his infidelity. Just 6 months ago, Kaine filmed a giddy video with second gentleman Doug Imhoff. Imhoff cheated on his first wife by getting his children's nanny pregnant. He also accused of smacking one of his previous girlfriends in the face. And here's that video, as you guys can see. Now, let's not be naive here. The people that Trump has nominated, these are not saints, okay? This isn't your role model, okay? These are disruptors. These are people who are the opposite of the status quo. I would expect every single person to have some level of dirt in their past that they will bring up during the confirmation hearing. I expect that. Just like Trump has dirt in his past as well, and just like anybody else who's questioning these individuals from a place of moral high ground, we could dig some dirt up on them too. And I'm not the only one to bring this point up. And so here is Congressman Mullen, who echoes exactly what I just said and throws this entire moral argument out the window by calling out his colleagues over their potential infidelities. Watch.
And then Senator Kaine, or I guess I better use the senator from Virginia, starts bringing up the fact that what if you showed up drunk to your job? How many senators have showed up drunk to vote at night? Have any of you guys asked them to step down and resign from their job? And don't tell me you haven't seen it, because I know you have. And then how many senators do you know have got a divorce before cheating on their wives? Did you ask them to step down? No. But it's for show. You guys make sure you make a big show and point out the hypocrisy because a man's made a mistake. And you want to sit there and say that he's not qualified? Give me a joke. I mean, it is so ridiculous that you guys hold yourself as this higher standard and you forget you got a big plank in your eye.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to what we witnessed during the election cycle, where Democrats were acting as if they had the moral high ground, that they could do no wrong, that they know exactly what right looks like, and they are a shining example of that. But then come to find out, when you peel it all back, they're just as corrupt, dirty, if not more corrupt than the people they were going after, particularly Trump. There's no question about that. Now, my biggest takeaway so far from watching the entire hearing was just how calm, collective, confident Pete Hegseth was. He was not rattled. He did not get emotional. He knew how to dodge certain questions, okay? And he performed as great as you would want someone to perform, especially when they're asking to be the Secretary of Defense. And the other person who brought this point up was Scott Jennings on CNN. Here's what he said.
Well, in short, I think Pete Hegseth kicked their asses today. I mean, it wasn't even close. They didn't lay a glove on Hegseth. No mistakes, calm, cool, collected. I mean, before the thing even started, you had this like Code Pink, protester freak show trying to disrupt the hearing. That's the Democratic base, by the way, which probably explains why the Democrats on the committee acted in such a bizarre and unprofessional way. I was appalled at some of the way these senators handled themselves and some of the lines of questioning. I mean, Tim Kaine sounded like a sex pervert in his questioning of Pete Hegseth. Blumenthal, who lied about his service in Vietnam, questioning Hegseth's qualifications. You had Gillibrand, you had Warren, you had Hirono going on unhinged rants about things. Angus King obviously doesn't understand what it's like to fight terrorism. On and on and on. Hegseth was cool in the face of this unhinged questioning. They made him look good today. It would be difficult for a Republican to vote against Hegseth after the Democrats' unseemly mudslinging today.
And maybe the best analogy here is that they underestimated Pete Hegseth and thought that he would come unprepared because they're buying into the lies from the media, or maybe they knew he was going to do well this entire time and they were hoping to get him on something. Regardless, like I stated already, he did exactly what you would want someone to do. And the Democrats, on the other hand, they didn't do what they wanted to do, which is exactly what Karen Finney had to say. Watch.
Look, overall, though, clearly Hegseth was well prepared. And it was clear Democrats recognized that, given that there was some clearly concern that he wouldn't be able to handle more than one round of questioning, they were clearly trying to get certain things on the record. Personally, the comms person in me would have framed it differently. I would have talked about a number of these issues, both based on his writings, which at one point they were trying to do that. That was part of the strategy, but really in the context of the modern military, because the reality is, as military leaders will tell you, climate change is a national security concern. It's real. It is a threat to our forces. It is a threat to our bases. It is a threat to our readiness. So I would have framed some of these questions more in the context of the current challenges the modern military faces. It is a diverse force, which is part of why diversity matters.
The biggest threat to the military so far that has actually had a damaging effect on the military in real time has been the DEI woke policies, not climate change, okay? And another example of that would be the vaccine mandates, how many members were kicked out because of that. So when you're talking about what is the biggest dangers to the military, it's the danger from within. The politics, the social justice movements that obviously impact readiness, morale, and hinders recruiting. So I don't know why libs have to inject climate change into every single thing that's wrong with our country. It's not always climate change, people, okay? And I'm not surprised she said that because even the outgoing president of the United States said that. Watch.
I know some incoming administration, some in the incoming administration are skeptical about the need for clean energy. They don't even believe climate change is real. I think they come from a different century. They're wrong. They are dead wrong. It's the single greatest existential threat to humanity.
Yeah, there you go. You heard it. It's more dangerous than nuclear war, more dangerous than China, Iran, North Korea, and Russia all put together, more dangerous than woke DEI policies, more dangerous than plagues and vaccines that leak out of labs. Got it. All of those things are less dangerous than climate change. Okay. So that's how libs feel. I disagree, and I'm sure you do too. But this takes me to the question at hand that I'd love for you guys to answer in the comment section below. Do you believe Pete Hegseth should be nominated on January 20th, right when Trump gets sworn into office? Should they go ahead, vote on it, and get him nominated that quickly? Or do you believe some of these allegations that they threw at him during the confirmation hearing should warrant some consideration and maybe rethink this nomination as a whole? I'm all the way in with Pete Hegseth, just as you guys know. I don't want a career politician. I don't want a general. I want an outsider. He has clear military experience. He's been deployed multiple times. Let's go ahead and get this done, right? That's what my answer is. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Now, one of the biggest stories from yesterday was the fact that Congress has to consider how they are going to pass disaster aid for California and those wildfires. And Speaker Mike Johnson made some waves when he said that it has to be packaged with conditions. This has caused a huge fallout with the left, and we did a video reacting to all of that. So if you guys want to check it out and more stories from yesterday, all you have to do is click on that video because it's coming up right now.